It's time again to recap the latest news from the solar PV industry, compiled by the American Solar Energy Society. I'm Jay Warmke with SolarPVTraining.com, and this is the news from the solar industry for the week of July 14th. A new report from the American Council on Renewable Energy has come up with what might be considered the obvious, which is when you impose tariffs on solar modules and cells, then the price of those solar modules and cells may actually go up. A study found that the impact of the recently enacted 50% tariff on solar modules and cells that come in from China and four Southeast Asian nations will have a significant impact on the price of solar over the coming years, increasing the cost per watt between 10 and 15 cents per watt, which is going to about double the cost of solar modules here in the US. In May, the Biden administration had imposed a 50% tariff on modules that come in from Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and Malaysia, as well as from China. In 2023, 88% of all of the solar modules that were installed here in the US were actually imported. And of those imported modules, 84% of them came from those four countries. Despite a huge investment that was spurred by incentives in the Inflation Reduction Act for domestic manufacturing, actually imported solar panels increased from 2022 to 2023 by 40%. Toledo Solar has announced that they're going to be shutting down their operations in Ohio. This company manufactures thin film cadmium telluride solar panels. Now, their nearby competitor, First Solar, which is the largest U.S. solar manufacturer, they also actually invented the cadmium telluride technology. They specialize in these thin film panels for utility scale systems. Now, in recent years, Toledo Solar had announced plans to begin to try and get this technology into the commercial as well as the residential marketplace. Now, their recent troubles began when the firm was awarded a contract to replace the solar modules that had been placed on the Ohio governor's mansion. Now, in 2004, GEO, Green Energy Ohio, had installed a small solar array on the carriage house at the governor's mansion. First, solar panels were used because they were manufactured in Ohio. But in 2022, it was decided to replace these panels, and the contract was awarded to Toledo Solar. Now, First Solar was contacted to come and remove the old panels and recycle them. Well, the technician from First Solar noticed that the panels that had just been installed by Toledo Solar were, in fact, First Solar panels with the labels altered to appear to have been manufactured by Toledo Solar, and thus all the lawsuits began. Now, the scandal resulted in the management at Toledo Solar being replaced, but the firm never recovered, and now they're shutting down operations. Michigan has become the 29th state to enact legislation that prevents HOAs, or homeowners associations, from prohibiting the installation of solar within their jurisdiction. Now, that may not seem like a big deal, but 1.4 million Michiganders actually live within HOAs, or those jurisdictions, and nationwide about 75 million people live within homeowner association areas. Well, in many cases, the HOAs are very hostile to the installation of solar modules, all the way up to outright prohibiting their installation. So 29 states have enacted legislation that stops them from doing that. Now, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer is expected to sign this legislation into law this week. And the FBI has warned that as renewable energy systems become more and more prevalent, that they will also become more and more subject to cyber hacking. These hackers are looking at disrupting the generation of electricity, I guess for the fun of it, stealing trade secrets, and also ransoming critical information. Now, attacks on residential PV systems are extremely rare, but they are increasing on microgrids as well as utility scale projects. Now, the FBI has said that if you practice basic cyber hygiene, which which they're saying is basically don't reuse passwords, keep all of the different systems isolated from each other, keep your software up to date, back up your data and your systems, and monitor them. That should go a long way to avoiding these problems. So what do you do with an abandoned nuclear power plant? Well, perhaps what you can do is convert that thing over to solar. Now, the Department of Energy has just announced that they're working with solar developers to install a 400 megawatt system at a very large abandoned nuclear facility in Idaho. They're also looking at doing a similar project in Nevada at an abandoned nuclear power plant. Data centers are likely going to be the biggest purchaser of the energy from these systems, and they may actually want to co-locate next to these solar farms. And that is the news from the solar industry for this week. We'll see you next week.